Hello, and welcome to episode 22 of What If Civilization Started Over. In the last one, we mostly looked at colonization, but we also saw the collapses of Vietnam and Indonesia, the expansion of South Africa, and some weird ideological stuff going on over here. So if you missed that, go watch it. But with that, we're going to get right into episode 22. First of all, I feel like it's weird that Siberia hasn't been colonized very much yet. So we are going to change that as, I'm just going to retcon this kind of. But we're going to say people have been living in Siberia, who have kind of been moving there for a while now. Probably it started with people fleeing the giant war in episode 20, and over the course of episode 21, they've kind of started actually colonizing Siberia, which means that the last remnant of the old world to be discovered is Australia. And people who aren't necessarily any empire will first of all basically act like Polynesians and explore these islands. And actually, a country will be created in Fiji, where there's going to be one major city, and that city will be the capital. So this is probably the most isolated country in the world. But people will also explore Australia, as the entirety of that will be discovered, and New Zealand will be discovered shortly afterwards. New Zealand will remain undiscovered. The rest of New Guinea, as well as modern-day Papua New Guinea, which isn't just on the island of New Guinea, will fall under Eastern Indonesian control, as a few more major cities are going to start popping up here. Eastern Indonesia is kind of going to create a colony in northern Australia. However, this colony will be very badly managed, and a lot of people will flee into the eastern part of Australia, and they will found an Eastern Australian country, which will probably be one of the weakest countries in the world, and it'll have 3 cities, whereas there'll be 1 city in northern Australia, and the capital of this will be the northernmost city, since that's the first one that got founded. In South Africa, they will basically do a similar thing to Eastern Indonesia, where they will take a lot of land, but then they'll immediately collapse and they'll go back to their old borders, and instead, this land will be the boundary of some new countries. And I've been forgetting to do ideologies, so I'll do that as well. 4 new cities will pop up. These are very sparsely populated and weak countries. And these will all be democracies, but they're also really weak. Other weak countries include these guys. However, Kenya is trying to change the fact that they're a really weak country, so they'll do some colonization. However, some new players will be joining the colonization scene, as Andalusia will take some West African land here that no one else has, directly next to their Moroccan vassal, continuing to stay the most powerful country in the world, as they will get hold of people even further into the continent. And actually, there would have been cities here. These are not Andalusian people. These are people who were already living here. This is like Mauritania, but it's a colony of Andalusia. India will invade into North India at this time, being very successful because they're like so powerful. How do you still have a capital, Pakistan? You're not a country anymore. India is so powerful that they will just absolutely clobber North India, as the North Indian government flees to Tibet and is executed for treason when they get to Tibet. But the son of the leader of North India basically claims a monarchy in northern Burma and signs a treaty with India in which a ridiculous amount of land is ceded to India as India continues to grow in power. A new monarchy is established in northern Burma. Japan is going through a bit of an economic crisis right now, and they are doing very badly, basically. They were on a wartime high for like 50 years, but now that the wartime high has ended, their monarchy is just extremely incompetent. So they're going to do a few things to fix their economy as a reformer comes into power. So the reformer will first sell their Filipino land back to the Philippines. Then they'll give independence to Taiwan. Green is the color it'll be. And then they'll also give independence to their colony over here, which will be this color. and they'll sell the island of, I think it's called Jeju, over to Korea. And then Japan will turn the same way they did in real life to isolationism, not letting anyone in or out of the country, because they believe that that will fix their economic woes. Ideology-wise, these are both monarchies. This new Siberian territory is going to be expanded into by a lot of countries. So first of all, it's actually going to go badly for most of them, spoiler. The first country to exploit this is going to be Manchuria, and they're the only ones who are actually going to do it well because they get on it early and actually do it over like a period of time during which they can actually subjugate the region, because these people have been living here not very long, like 100 years maybe, like not like thousands of years or anything, but still, like, you can't just subjugate people super easily. But Manchuria will do it well, becoming Siberia. They're no longer Manchuria, these guys are Manchuria now. So Mongolia will try the same thing, as they will claim all of this territory. And then Persia and Russia will join in on the fun, creating a treaty between them, dividing the territory like so. And all is going well, but it's about to not. And the first of these countries to collapse is actually going to be Mongolia, since they were the first one of these countries to do anything. So they're going to have basically... It's going to start with the Siberian regions rebelling, and there's no major cities in their Siberian region, so it's just like a giant rebellion. However, the Siberian forces are very weak, and so Mongolia thinks, hey, we can still crush these guys. They take Lake Baikal, which is probably where most of the population actually is, and they're like, hey, we're doing pretty well. But then, in the east of the country, the Yellow River Valley region will rebel from Mongolia, and I'll say that's this region. They've wanted their independence for a while, ever since their original country got destroyed in the end of the last war, and they take the opportunity to gain their independence. And the worst part is that most of this army was from these territories, so they just turn back, and instead of invading into Siberia, they start an invasion into Mongolia, as the capital of Mongolia is nearly taken. But anyway, Siberia will start pushing towards the Mongolian capital, and also seize this major city and do some pretty bad things to the people there, so that the people here happen to be the same as the people here, and therefore they magically want to join the movement. As those people switch sides, and this will be the new capital of Siberia. Actually, no, they'll probably form a capital on Lake Baikal, but anyway, bad stuff happens in this city. Mongolia calls on Persia to start helping them as they start wiping these guys, or pushing these guys back, as well as pushing back the Yellow River Valley Rebellion, forcing them to sign a white peace with Mongolia, in which they do get their independence and actually keep the same ideology as Mongolia, so we'll duplicate that. Anyway, Mongolia is now doing pretty well against the Siberian Rebellion, but the Siberians in Persia are not very happy about this whole development, and they will start rebelling from Persia as well, or more so, the Siberians in Persia will join the Siberian Rebellion that was already existing in Mongolia, so it's really a Mongolian thing that the Persian people are joining. And so now Persia's like fully in this war, but unfortunately for Persia, Asia, who's wanted their independence since they were, I think, destroyed by, or it was the end of the last war, they will declare their independence before instantly collapsing between three factions. The west is a theocratic faction, which I will mark in red. In the center of the country is a monarch who claims to be descended from the old government, and then the east is a democratic movement that has popped up in Central Asia. So yeah, Central Asia has collapsed, and therefore Persia can't help Mongolia in their war. As Siberia starts their invasions into Mongolia and basically at gunpoint forces the theocratic Mongolia to sign a peace in which a lot of territory will transfer to Siberia, who is now able to set up a government. And like I said, their capital is going to be on Lake Baikal. And ideologically, they are going to be a monarchy. Okay, now for the Central Asian Civil War. The theocratic movement is the one that Persia finds most threatening, so they will basically have a peace with the other two movements and even recognize the central movement as the rightful rulers of Central Asia. so that they can cooperate on this, because the democratic movement is also threatening to Persia. Let's say the theocratic movement just doesn't actually work out very well, as the theocracy is no longer very popular in Central Asia, as they kind of want monarchy or democracy. And so Persia will hand all of their land over to what they consider to be the rightful Central Asian government and start helping to defeat the democracy. However, India sees an opportunity because despite being a monarchy, they would love to have all of their neighbors be weak. Like, their neighbors are all already very weak compared to them, with Yangtze being maybe a possible exception that they would love to weaken. They're definitely the strongest non-European country if you count Russia as European. Although Russia is about to collapse, so they might be the strongest country. It depends whether you consider them to be stronger than Andalusia, which I do not. Anyway, India will start helping the democratic movement, which will allow them to pick up a ridiculous amount of steam. And they will basically, they want the democratic movement to basically be a puppet, and they don't like that the democratic movement is going to become more powerful. And so they basically go to all the sides and say, we're going to make the peace treaty, just so you know that we're the boss. Ideologically, this Central Asian country is going to be a monarchy, and these guys are a democracy. What's really interesting is that this is Afghanistan. I'm going to call these guys Central Asia, even though they technically should be called Turkmenistan. These guys are Afghanistan, which means that Afghanistan is the most democratic country in the world in this timeline, which is just really funny if you think about it. Anyway, one more thing, and then we're going to do the collapse of Russia, which I promised already, and then we're going to do colonization, and then end the episode. Which is basically these three declare a coalition war on Yemen. I think they already did in the last episode to convince Yemen to change their ideology, but they're not done yet. As they pretty quickly, and I'll just use this Somali color, they pretty much take this colony and divide it between themselves. Like so, and Ethiopia will basically make themselves a constitutional monarchy, but it's like actually a constitutional monarchy, not like the other ones that I've been saying are constitutional monarchies, where like pretty much the king has most of the power, but there's also a parliament. These guys are kind of the opposite, where the parliament has all the power, but there's also a king. And these guys are gonna create a permanent alliance, which hasn't existed in a while. And these guys are the Democratic Allies for East Africa, is their name, which I think is a pretty cool sounding name. So they're gonna have the democracy ideology color as their main color of the alliance. And it's funny, these were the first three countries in the series. They're back, and now they're all democracies. Okay, by the way, Mesopotamia, actually, I said I was going to do one more thing. I want to do another thing, because Mesopotamia is getting very weak. That's why I'm not even considering them, despite their very populated nature. They were forced to become a monarchy in the last episode because their Sharia law, I call it that, it's like their religious laws were so unpopular, and now Egypt declares war on them. And Arabia will also declare war on them, and it's a joint war to get Arabian territory back. And it works, as Mesopotamia is forced to surrender. And Persia wishes they got in on it, but Russia doesn't, because Russia is actively collapsing as this is happening. And Egypt will also get some territory out of this. Let's look at the active collapse of Russia, though. And this is going to be started when Siberia will basically declare the liberation of the Russian Siberians and start a massive invasion into the Siberian parts of Russia. And being Siberians, they're going to do way better than Russia ever could at liberating Siberia. And obviously these regions will join them in the rebellion, as some regions they hadn't even conquered yet will also join Russia, identifying themselves more as Siberians than as Russians. So that's what it'll look like after that. And the prime minister and king of Russia, the prime minister is sort of appointed by the king. Like, at this point, the king kind of decides who the prime minister is. They will send troops over here. Oh, no, wait. Sorry, yeah. The king has basically passed a law saying they get to appoint the prime minister because the prime minister kept trying to go against them. Anyway, so Russia's really a full monarchy at this point. And people are sick and tired of the end of their democracy. And so they're going to rebel. And they're actually going to start by rebelling in the Russian core territory, as they will actually rebel in the Caucasus, which is where Russia's original capital was. And these are the people who are the most upset with their country's decline and decline into authoritarianism. So Russia will start sending their troops into here, but things will continue to go worse and worse for them as Croatia will rebel, and they will take this territory. Albanian rebellion will happen right over here. Then a Greek rebellion, and this will be followed by a Turkish rebellion. The red government that followed the West African thing under a brand new unified Turkish government, and Crete will go with Turkey, which is interesting. Actually, no, Crete will be seized by Egypt while Russia's collapse, who takes advantage of Russia's collapse to do that. They also take advantage of Mesopotamia being weak to seize Cyprus, with the rest of Turkey going to Turkey. The Caucasus will make a quick invasion into this land to seize that as well. As the Russian government, basically the rest of parliament who is not appointed and is still elected, will literally hang the prime minister and then go to the king's palace where the king is like basically locked in his throne room essentially, and the king's guards are bribed by the parliament to let them into the throne room, where the king is shot by the second in command in parliament, who was actually the one who was elected to be prime minister but wasn't allowed to be. And with that, the entire Russian government will collapse, as Siberia will get all of their land back and start invading further into Russia, and more states will break away. The Estonian state that was here a while ago will break away, and Finland will come with them. In Scandinavia, all of the people over here will pledge their allegiance to the actual Scandinavian government. In Poland, which was only ever colonized by Russia, a new Polish country will form. And the king's son is desperately trying to keep power in Ukraine. However, that's not even working for them. A new Ukrainian government will pop up in Sevastopol that will quickly seize the capital of the country, as well as the parliament, who tries to take control. And they basically invite the leaders of all the rebellions so they can actually have a civilized way of dividing it instead of just having an all-out war. And these are the new borders. Let's do some ideologies now. The old monarchy of Russia lives on in this rump state, and also being a monarchy are Poland, Estonia will also be a monarchy, this new Romanian country, Greece, and Croatia. In the democratic corner, we have Ukraine, obviously, Belarus, Croatia, Turkey, Caucasia, and finally we have theocracies as well. In the theocratic corner, we have Albania. We have Albania and Serbia. Albania will be... and the religion layer is super outdated. I'm going to fix it at the end of this episode, but it will be the pink religion theocracy. And yeah, you can't see it, but I am currently covering Svalbard in Scandinavia's color because I feel like they should probably own that. And that's the collapse of Russia. So let's do the colonization that's happening while all of that was happening in the old world, because this is like the main focus of this series for the next few episodes. Actually, next episode colonization is going to be more or less complete, is my plan. So let's see how it happens in this episode. But Brazil is going to be slowly but steadily expanding their or not colony, just their existence, I guess. As Galicia, basically the three northern South American powers, Galicia, Britannia, and Andalusia, found a massive discovery of the Amazon rainforest, and they find that there's just rainforest there, but they go ahead and claim it anyway, and since no one else claims it, since they are meeting to divide it up, that counts as them owning it, technically. But there's not really people living here yet, as this land will actually go over to Brittany, because Andalusia wants to focus on their other colonies. Meanwhile, the southern tip of South America will be explored by England, who will continue expanding their southern colony. The Darien Gap is going to be claimed officially by Brittany during this time, so that's finally done with. They will also discover and colonize the Galapagos Islands. Spain and Belgium are still racing to, first of all, see who can explore North America the fastest, but also who can colonize it. And they finally finished their race as New York ends up being kind of the dividing line. It's more technically like the boundary between modern day New Jersey and New York. That ends up being the dividing line. As these two have insane levels of competition with each other and both start expanding westward. As the entire Hudson Bay is explored and colonized by Belgium, while Spain goes up the Mississippi River and explores everything east of there, claiming everything up to the Great Lakes area, like so. Meanwhile, the rest of Mexico is explored by Andalusia, who also claims it, and no one else claims it. And this land is also going to be discovered. And I guess this episode is going to be kind of light on colonization, partially because it's been quite long in the old world, and partially because not much is going to happen since there's not really any wars. Right now is a period of time when everyone's kind of happy with each other. I say this, though, as Greenland, and this is as much as you can see, Belgium will fully colonize will start a colony in Greenland, and no one lives here, but they will claim the whole island. And England is kind of upset by that, so they decide to claim Iceland. But unlike Belgium, they actually back up their claim by creating 2 major cities there, as Europe continues to get more and more populated, and the scientific and industrial revolutions are starting to become actual things in Europe. But also Western Europe is becoming more, just better than Eastern Europe, pretty much, because of these colonies. Expeditions will then be sent out to map most of the rest of North America by all 3 of the North American colonizers, as more and more land will start to be claimed, and they'll try to divide it up evenly between them, but Spain and Belgium just can't work with each other, as they hate each other too much. In South America, most of the rest of the continent is explored, as a treaty will be made between England and Brittany, dividing up the western coast of South America, like so. And Brazil will actually do some more conquering, and they actually have enough people to do this. However, a major tragedy is about to strike, as the only independent nation in the Americas is about to get defeated, because Galicia wants more land, and they're kind of sick of the Amazon, and they know there's actual people living here, so they launch an all-out assault into Brazil, and kind of just show how strong they've gotten, as Brazil is wiped out within a matter of months, fully conquered by Galicia and annexed into their territory. And another thing is that a personal union will form between the king of Aquitaine and the king of Galicia, which means that the 2 countries will actually unite, which is a weird unity because it kind of looks weird. But Aquitaine will cease to be a country, and their small colony over here will first be received by Galicia, who then sells it over to Brittany, because why would they have the colony there? Galicia prefers their colony over here. Ireland enters a period of isolation at this point after their failures in colonization. And yeah, that's about it for this episode. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, where we will finish colonization.